episode today is sponsored by Volato. Few words about Volato. They launched in early 2021 as a fast-growing private aviation company, disrupting the category with innovative solutions to fractional ownership, jet cards, charter, and more. Volato operates one of the largest and most modern fleets of Honda jets in the world. Understanding the value pilots contribute to the business, Volato's program helps pilots thrive and share in the company's success. Volato pilots receive robust training and a balanced lifestyle. Volato prides themselves on delivering the best customer and work experience and safety without compromise. Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning back in for another episode of FAPA Talk. I am Tim, and I'm here with Carlee Szarek. Carlee is a pilot, a flight instructor, a space systems engineer for Northrop Grumman, a general aviation enthusiast. Carlee, thank you very much for being with us here today.
Thank you for having me.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your particular unique journey in aviation?
Absolutely. I've had a very unique aviation journey. So I grew up in the world of aviation. Family road trips when we were younger was all in the Barrens. So lots of time in the air my whole life. And because of that, I kind of got to the point where I was front seat and I wasn't an uninformed passenger, but I was ready to be a very informed passenger. So I launched into my flight training early in life and wrapped up all my ratings right after I graduated college, and became a flight instructor along the way because I loved learning and I had really awesome flight instructors. So I kind of wanted to establish myself in that community. But yeah, born and bred of aviation. Everyone in my family flies. We're all the same kind of crazy, and it was a very natural thing for me to get into, which is really wonderful.
It definitely is a special kind of crazy to get into aviation.
Yes.
You get bit by the aviation bug. You can't go ahead and explain it. Why jet fuel, just makes you go and want to get up in the morning.
Exactly.
That's us. So, did you ever want to go ahead and be a career pilot, or was it always just going to be a happy, fun sort of hobby kind of thing?
Yes and no. Honestly, I fell into both my career and the hobbies all on accident. I am a full-time engineer, and with that, I do have a lot of time somehow that I'm able to fly. And I still do instruct, and I do everything that I can. I do formation clinics. I do fill the weekends with aviation. But right now, flying as a professional is a supplement to my career. So I do pick up jobs where I'll move planes and help passengers and do whatever I can there. And but right now it's a supplement to the career.
Okay. And tell us about the engineering career. What did you do in engineering?
Yeah, so that I also accidentally walked into. I became an engineer because I've always been very artistic, but obviously capable in math and science. So to me, engineering combined that. And I don't want to say I engineer differently than my father. My father and brother are both engineers as well, but all of our brains work different. So became an engineer. I've always been super, super interested in the space industry. Growing up in aerospace was awesome, and I had exposure to both industries, but because I fill all of my free time with the aerospace industry, I figured aim for the stars, so to say, and go into space industry.
Okay.
And yeah, literally. And I kind of walked into a really good job right after college, and then ended up throwing my career far forward in the couple of years after that. And I lead a program for Northrop, and I work in satellite servicing, and we do a whole bunch of things there, everything from standards to hardware development, and really, really incredible job. Pinch myself every day at work.
It sounds like it. Not everyone wants to go ahead and be a rocket scientist, and you kind of actually did that.
That's hilarious.
My gosh. So, one thing you had mentioned when you were talking about being an engineer, which was interesting, you said you were a creative person, and so you decided to become an engineer. And yes, you
Yeah.
did mention the math and science, but the first thing you started with was the creativity. And that's something that you don't often think about. Usually you
Yeah.
hear the engineering or some of the sciences, and it's just math and science.
Well, there's
So,
so much that, like, you look at every shape and like we have to think about what's inside of it and how we got that shape, and like you can look at a piece of aluminum and see a shape inside and get it out. And yeah, it's very much a creative thing that is very much backed by math and science.
Yes. Awesome. All right. So, talking about aviation, because I know you mentioned everything that you do in aviation, you've got a passion for it and getting people into the industry. What would you say is the biggest obstacle right now for somebody officially taking that first leap into the pool of aviation?
First leap as in learning to fly or early career?
Maybe the learning to fly, the biggest thing that would stop somebody from saying, I want to become a pilot, so let's do it.
Yeah, I mean, the same barriers to every education system. And then once you're in it, I think it's really important to have structure. And I know that's the engineer saying that, but every class you've ever taken has a syllabus and has structure and has a timeline. And flight training can be a thing that is approached pretty whimsically. And I think it's really important to understand for each person what they're able to give to their training, whether that's 1 hour a week for flying, 1 hour a month, 1 hour a day, what that looks like so that they can understand their timeline, and then compare that to the FARs that are set out for the minimums of what you need to do. But understanding both what's required of you and what you can actually give, I think is a really big understanding with starting anything really, but
Sure.
takes a while. And if you just chip at it slowly, it'll happen slowly.
But you got to have a plan, is what you're saying.
Yeah, have a plan and understand the timeline and then work towards it. And obviously do all the studies and everything that everyone will tell you to do. But I think imposing structure, and whether that's, like I said, the 1 hour flight a week or a day, a month, whatever, and then build in study time to your life and start talking about aviation and in that different language as often as you can, and make friends that are also doing the same thing, and so that you're able to stretch those muscles even if you're not necessarily flying.
Telling some of the students in my private ground school to go ahead and start getting the phonetic alphabet in there when they're
Mm-hmm.
driving. Start reading license plates in the phonetic alphabet if you can. When you're
Mm-hmm.
spelling your name to someone from a bank on a phone, try to use the
Yeah.
phonetic alphabet. I mean,
Boy.
just like anything, practice when you can.
Yeah,
So,
and just it's such a different language the moment you're speaking on the radio. It's the same words, but like in real life, I'm not saying Roger understood in the way that I am when I'm flying, you know. It's
which is
different.
nice. Some people do go
Yeah,
ahead and carry that over into their life, and they say it's subconscious. No, it's not. You're
yeah,
specifically doing that to go ahead and just so everyone
exactly.
knows you're a pilot.
Yeah, just
Because
start practicing flipping those switches in your brain.
yes, absolutely. Okay.
Yeah,
So if you were talking to somebody that says, I'm thinking about a career in aviation, what would you tell them?
I would ask them what kind of career they're trying to walk into, whether that's airlines, charter, private, fun, hobby, like however they want to do that. I think they need to understand that and understand what that path could look like. And yeah, yeah, I think, yeah, just understanding what route you want to go. Because I mean, when you think about an aviation professional, you always think about the people at the airlines with the epaulets and everything, and that's not what everybody's aviation journey looks like.
You know, so many people when if we're going to do a cross country flight, there's a
Mhm.
lot of planning that goes into it. Where am I going? What's the aircraft? What's the time? What's the weather? What's the route? What other nav aids? Event of an emergency. But
Mhm.
when so many people choose their career, there isn't a flight plan for it, and there
No.
needs to be, especially
Yeah.
in aviation. Like you said, what do you want to do, and make a plan. And yes, that
Mhm.
plan is going to change and you're going to have to amend your clearance and all of
Yeah.
that, but you've got to start somewhere.
Understanding if you want somebody else to make your schedule or you make your schedule, or you're trying to be home every night, or trying to be away from home as often as possible, all of that plays into what route you're going to go.
Definitely.
Mhm.
So, well, in addition to being an engineer and a pilot, you have a YouTube channel that follows you around, and it's a lot of aviation, but it's not necessarily 100% aviation. Tell us a little bit about that and how you started doing that.
Yeah, so I have always had like a little digital camera or a phone now, and cameras. I have my film camera right over there and my like recording cameras nearby. Like I said, I grew up a creative person, throwing pottery, painting, taking videos. I've been taking videos my whole life, but I got to the point finally where I was like, well, I might as well show the world them rather than making my family watch them on the couch. um, so yeah, I got into that. And because I'm a human and not just a pilot and pumping out pilot videos, I share random parts of my life and whatever I feel like creating. Just that creative side of me has that outlet since everything else is a little technical.
Sure.
Yeah.
But there is a lot of aviation in there. So if you're going to be flying somewhere, do you almost always tape it or record it or just on select ones?
Yes or no. I feel like a lot of the flying I do is repetitive, and I know that's exciting for other people, but I'm like, oh my God, if I have to film this exact same segment again and you're practically talking to the same controllers. And so yes and no. I always have the recording stuff in the plane, but I like to record like fun, silly trips. I brought my girlfriends to Lake Tahoe. We flew into South Lake in a 172 for girls' weekend. And I record going to Oshkosh and the Oshkosh flight every summer and random other bits and bobs. But yeah, I try and keep it fun and exciting and different.
Yeah. What is it officially like flying in Oshkosh? We all hear the horror stories of the 2-inch thick printout for the NOTAMs, completely changing the way that you go and approach an aircraft to land. Is it really that crazy and different?
I would have no idea. I've always done a mass arrival, and so I've never done the Rip-on Fisk arrival. I've always wanted to, but I fly in the Bonanzas to Oshkosh group every year in a mass arrival, and I don't have to worry about it.
Sounds nice. So the
Yeah.
moral of the story is if you want to fly to Oshkosh, find another group and just follow
Yeah.
the airplane in
Yeah.
front of you.
Train with them and then go with them. But we always depart separate. So it is always exciting. There's always exciting stuff happening at Osh.
There definitely is. It's a whole lot of fun. So I live so close to it that I get spoiled and get to go and drive there. Don't need
Yeah.
to waste the paper and print out that
Yeah.
note. I'm okay with that. So,
That's awesome.
well, just a couple more kind of happy, fun questions, and then we'll wrap things up. I appreciate your time this morning. What is your best, worst, strangest, most memorable, whatever aviation story? You've got a lot of flying experience, so you just have to pick one.
Yeah. Um, man, this is a hard one, but I think sharing aviation with my family who is aviators, I think that's really special. And I remember the first time I flew formation with my brother in the right seat, and he had never been exposed to me flying formation before then because normally we're in different planes. Um, I think that was a really special thing, and I caught it on film, and it was really cool. And I can hear him saying, like, "Oh my God, Carlee, like you can fly formation," because we just took off and I tucked right in, and it was a really, really cool thing. But he's a professional pilot, and he's an FFI rated formation pilot, so he understands what goes into that. And we're flying next to my dad. Like that's crazy to think about, and it's just the three of us flying next to each other on our little commutes, and it's really, really cool to share with family and friends, with everyone. But I think I never get over pinching myself when I'm flying next to my family because I'm like, this is weird and amazing
All at once.
all at once.
Awesome. Um, this will be another hard one. Again, you only have to pick one. Real or imagined, flown it or not. It's your favorite aircraft.
Big fan of the Beechcraft line. The lady formation pilots are the beach babes. So I would say probably the Baron, Bonanza, quick second, but those are wonderful airplanes, and it's an airplane that I've spent the most time in, and it's an extension of me, and I'm really grateful for that.
Okay, perfect. Um, as we're wrapping up, anything else that you want to go ahead and toss out there?
Man, I think as your journey goes along in aviation, always remember why you started. And I'll always say this, but remember why you started, even though you have to stay up late, you have to practice the phonetic alphabet, you have to learn about all the different kinds of clouds, and all of that matters. And then as you start applying for jobs and building time and building your aviation community, just every time you take off, remember that you're in the sky, and like that's exactly why you're doing this. Because every time I take off, I'm like, here I go. And it's just like so exciting and so fun because that's why we're all pilots. That's why we all did this, because we have that love of being in the air and flying.
It's so easy to get caught up in all of the
Every
steps, things that happen. I remember, God, I was on my third year of aviation in college, and I was on my one of my long solo cross countries,
Mhm.
and was by myself. And there was a moment that all the needles were set, right where they were supposed to be. Nothing
Mhm.
moved, and that was the first time, probably about 170 hours
Mhm.
in, that I was able to take the moment and say, "Oh my gosh, I'm a mile up, flying an
We're doing,
airplane by
yeah.
myself." It was like just that quick, wonderful appreciation. This is amazing moment. Then, of course, someone called and the moment was gone. But
Yeah.
it's not going
And
to
it's
smell the
such a
roses.
special, yeah, it allows you to shut off your mind, and it's like it's always you versus the world in life, but you versus the world by being or a mile up in the air in your airplane by yourself is so cool and so freeing. So always hold on to that, whether you're stuck in the study grind or wherever you are in your journey and building time, whatever you're doing, remember that you do in fact love this and it's everything you wanted for.
Awesome. If
Yeah.
somebody wanted to get in touch with you to go ahead and pick your brain about aviation and everything, how would they get in touch with you?
I think I'm pretty easy to reach. I'm like the only Carlee Szarek on the planet. So I do have a YouTube channel. I do have an Instagram and a TikTok and all those things. And then I have the Carlee Szarek creator email, just carleeszarek@gmail.com. And I'm always happy to talk about aviation, obviously.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Well, Carlee, thank you so much for spending part of your day with us. Definitely enjoyed learning a little bit more about who you are and why you do what you do. Appreciate it. Look forward to seeing you at a FAPA event maybe sometime soon.
sounds
And
like
thank you, everybody, and we will chat soon.